George Foreman returned in 1987 after 10 years away. At 45, he knocked out Michael Moorer for the WBA and IBF heavyweight titles. Between them, he lost 2 title fights. What changed? George Foreman was born in Marshall, Texas in 1949 and grew up in Houston. In the 1960s, he encountered boxing through a Job Corps camp in Oregon. The International Boxing Hall of Fame describes boxing as an outlet for a rebellious teenager. Later, Foreman told NBC News that Job Corps gave him structure, food, and mentoring, and helped redirect his life. The camp provided more than a place to learn the sport. It connected him with an institution and with mentors while he was still a teenager. From there, Foreman entered organized amateur competition. His starting point was practical: a program, a place to learn boxing, and mentors. The next stage was competition. Foreman's first major results came in organized amateur competition. In 1968, he won the National AAU Heavyweight Championship and then took the heavyweight gold medal at the Mexico City Olympics. Those were separate achievements in the same year. The AAU title established national success. Olympic gold put him at the top of an international tournament. ESPN later described a small American flag in Foreman's hand after the Olympic victory, a detail tied to that documented result. In 1969, he turned professional. That move followed a record already built through competition, rather than a leap from a casual introduction to a world title. Olympic gold did not guarantee what would happen in the paid ranks, but it gave Foreman serious credentials before his professional career began. The next stage would test whether those amateur results could carry into championship-level boxing. 4 years after the Olympic victory, his first professional title opportunity arrived against the reigning heavyweight champion, Joe Frazier. On January 22, 1973, George Foreman met Joe Frazier in Kingston, Jamaica, for the heavyweight championship. Frazier was the reigning champion. Foreman stopped him in the second round and took the title. 4 years after turning professional, Foreman had his first professional heavyweight championship. The win changed his position in the sport. He was no longer an Olympic champion trying to establish himself among the paid heavyweights. He had beaten the man who held boxing's highest prize. But a 2-round victory did not promise a long reign. Foreman still had to defend the title, and the next major test would come against Muhammad Ali. Before that defeat, the record was straightforward. Foreman had reached the top of professional boxing by stopping the reigning champion in Kingston. His later comeback would be measured against this earlier reign, not against an untested ambition. That distinction matters once a former champion tries to return. On October 30, 1974, George Foreman met Muhammad Ali in Kinshasa, then Zaire, and now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the bout known as the Rumble in the Jungle. Foreman entered as champion with 40 professional wins, including 24 consecutive knockouts. Ali stopped him in the 8th round. That result ended Foreman's unbeaten run and took the heavyweight title away from him. The loss did not end his career immediately. The International Boxing Hall of Fame records wins over Ron Lyle, Joe Frazier, and Scott Ledoux in 1976. Those victories put wins back on his record, but they did not restore the championship. The important change came in Kinshasa. Foreman went from an undefeated champion to a former champion with a loss that ended his first reign. Any later comeback would have to begin from that position, not from an unbroken record. The next defeat, against Jimmy Young in 1977, would determine whether he kept boxing at all. On March 17, 1977, George Foreman lost a unanimous 12-round decision to Jimmy Young in San Juan, Puerto Rico. After that defeat, he retired from professional boxing. Foreman later described an intense religious experience connected to the fight, while ESPN also reported that a doctor described his physical state as heat prostration. The religious experience is Foreman's account of the transition, not an independently established supernatural event. NBC reported that Foreman was ordained as a minister in 1978, founded the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in 1980, and established the George Foreman Youth and Community Center in Houston in 1984. For the next decade, his public work centered on ministry and community programs rather than professional boxing. In 1987, George Foreman returned to professional boxing, 10 years after retiring. ESPN reported that Foreman said he came back partly to raise money for the Houston Youth Center he had established. That was his stated explanation, not proof it was the only reason. What is clear is the decision itself. A former heavyweight champion entered professional competition again after a decade away. Returning did not restore Foreman's standing. He needed wins against named opponents to earn another title opportunity. The next part of the record is therefore not about what Foreman intended. It is about whom he beat after 1987 and what those results produced. Between 1987 and 1991, George Foreman defeated Dwight Cowie, Burt Cooper, and Jerry Cooney. The International Boxing Hall of Fame identifies those wins as the results that earned him a title challenge against Evander Holyfield. That sequence changed the comeback from a return to a documented route back into contention. Foreman was not handed the Holyfield fight because he had once been champion. He had to rebuild his position through actual heavyweight wins. The opponents matter because they mark the competitive work that followed his decade away. 3 victories were enough to move him toward a major title opportunity, but they did not guarantee what would happen when he reached it. On April 19, 1991, he would face Holyfield with a rebuilt record, not with his old championship status restored. The next test was whether that record could carry him into a major title fight against Holyfield, and whether the comeback could survive the answer. Foreman's comeback had already included title decision losses to Evander Holyfield in 1991 and Tommy Morrison in 1993, with victories over Alex Stewart and Pierre Coetzer between them. After a 17-month layoff following the Morrison fight, he met Michael Moorer on November 5, 1994, at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. ESPN reports that Moorer had outboxed Foreman for much of the fight. In the 10th round, Foreman knocked him out. At 45, he won the WBA and IBF versions of the heavyweight championship and became the oldest world heavyweight champion. Those were separate sanctioning body titles, not an undisputed championship. The 2 belts did not remain with Foreman for long. In March 1995, the WBA withdrew recognition after rejecting his appeal to fight unranked Axel Schulz instead of the top available contender under its mandatory defense rules. Foreman fought Schulz on April 22 and won a controversial majority decision, according to contemporaneous Wire reporting. The IBF then ordered a rematch. In June, Foreman relinquished the IBF title rather than provide Schulz with the ordered rematch. The result was a split administrative ending. The WBA recognition disappeared after the first dispute, and the IBF belt was surrendered after the second. The November 1994 knockout remained official, but holding those title versions required compliance with separate sanctioning body demands. After the belts were gone, the Schulz dispute acquired a more serious second layer. Federal investigators and prosecutors examined allegations of corruption in the IBF ranking system. UPI and CBS AP reports linked a claimed $100,000 payment for a special exception to Foreman's 1995 fight with Axel Schulz. The accounts conflicted, and they did not themselves establish that the payment bought Foreman a title opportunity or that the fight itself was fixed. Instead, they described an alleged administrative exception believed to involve the Schulz bout. That distinction matters. The reporting raised questions about how the later fight was arranged, but it did not show that bribery created Foreman's opportunity against Michael Moorer, influenced the 10th round knockout, or changed the recorded 1994 WBA and IBF result. The strongest supported claim is narrower. Federal scrutiny reached alleged IBF ranking manipulation, and reporting linked a claimed payment to a later exception. The 1994 championship win and the unresolved 1995 allegations remain separate parts of the record. Foreman's public career also moved beyond the ring through the George Foreman grill and television work. He became the product's namesake and a documented television pitchman. That was a different role from being a champion. He promoted a consumer appliance rather than defending a belt. His public identity therefore included heavyweight boxing, ministry, and television promotion for an eponymous grill. The grill belongs to a separate chapter of the record from the 1994 title win. Foreman's career after boxing was not limited to fight results. It also included a documented role promoting a product that carried his name. Foreman's professional boxing career ended in November 1997 when he lost a decision to Shannon Briggs. The International Boxing Hall of Fame describes that decision as controversial, while recording it as a loss. Foreman finished with 76 wins, 5 losses, and 68 knockouts. In 2003, the Hall of Fame inducted him. That recognition did not change the Briggs result or erase the defeats in his second career. It placed the disputed ending within the official record of Foreman's career. George Foreman's family announced his death on March 21, 2025, at age 76. NBC reported that the announcement gave no cause of death. On April 14th, Houston and Foreman's family held a memorial service at the Wortham Theater Center. A 2026 Cative and Gray report later said Foreman had been buried at Logan Park Cemetery in Sioux City, Iowa, in accordance with a wish described by his family, and that a monument had been installed there. One documented choice from the title dispute still invites debate. Would you have accepted the ordered Axel Schulz rematch to keep the IBF belt, or surrendered it as Foreman did? Give your answer and reasoning in the comments. Subscribe for more evidence-led sports documentaries